Okay, let's unpack this. I mean, imagine a surgeon in Delhi, right, operating on a patient in rural Assam using a robotic arm.
Hmm.
A 1-second delay in the network doesn't just mean, a buffering icon.
Right, it could literally mean a severed artery. Welcome to the war room, by the way.
What we are really dissecting here is a masterclass in how a nation's digital infrastructure is built.
Exactly. Today, we are looking at the invisible physical resource that makes that zero delay reality possible, and why the government just auctioned it off for over 1.5 lakh crore rupees.
Yeah, and if you are analyzing India's economic trajectory for your exams, you're gearing up to understand a massive leap here. We aren't talking about consumer tech upgrades today.
No, we're transitioning from 5G deployment straight into 6G development. And this deep dive is your strategic briefing on how, well, raw radio frequencies are transformed into geopolitical power. I mean, when a government allocates spectrum on this scale, it dictates the speed of commerce, the security of borders, and, the efficiency of local governance for the next decade. If you want to understand where India is heading, you have to look at the invisible architecture in the air.
So let's start with the hard numbers of that physical resource. I'm going to set the baseline data anchors you need to memorize. The government offered 72 gigahertz of spectrum.
Right, and they successfully allocated about 51,236 megahertz of it.
Yeah, which means roughly 71% of the available spectrum was actually sold, and the gross revenue generated, a staggering 1,050,173 crore rupees.
To put that in perspective for you, I mean, we are talking about an injection of capital larger than the GDP of several small nations, just for the right to transmit invisible waves.
He is wild. And the key players who bought in, you need to remember these: Reliance Jio, Party Airtel, Vodafone Idea, and the Adani Group.
And crucially, don't forget the public sector operator, BSNL. They were earmarked for a 5G rollout through administrative allocation rather than the auction block.
Good point. So the 71% sold, that's deemed entirely adequate for nationwide coverage over the next few years. But, the raw revenue isn't the real story here.
No, it's not. To analyze this critically, you really have to break down the technical policy architecture. How the government actually divided and sold these frequency bands dictates exactly how this network is going to function.
Right, so the spectrum was auctioned across 3 distinct frequency tiers, and each serves a highly specific structural purpose. Let's look at the low-frequency band first.
Yeah, that ranges from 600 to 2300 megahertz.
And within that low band, the 700 megahertz slice is, well, it's the absolute premium real estate, right? Reliance Jio actually emerged as the sole operator to acquire spectrum in that specific band.
They did. But why is it premium? Let's explain the how here for your notes. Think of frequency like sound.
Oh, I like this analogy.
Yeah, so a 700 megahertz wave is like the deep thumping bass from a subwoofer in a car driving down your street.
Right, it travels for miles and you can feel it right through the concrete walls of your house.
Exactly. That is the perfect way to understand the physics of it. Lower frequencies basically mean longer wavelengths.
So because a 700 megahertz wave can bend around buildings and, penetrate dense concrete, it allows for incredibly wide area coverage.
Right, using significantly fewer base stations. We're talking about a single tower providing seamless consumer broadband over a radius of several kilometers.
Which is huge. And globally, the 700 megahertz ecosystem is incredibly mature. So if your goal is to ensure nobody in dense, urban, or sprawling semi-urban regions is cut off, this is the foundational layer.
Precisely. It's the layer you need. Meanwhile, the slightly higher 800 to 2300 megahertz ranges, those are utilized to decongest existing 4G networks.
So if the 700 megahertz band is your sprawling interstate highway system covering massive distances, what happens when you enter the city limits?
That brings us to the mid-frequency band, specifically the 3300 megahertz band.
Ah, the C-band. The sources label this the capacity layer, right?
Exactly. Continuing our sound analogy, if the low band is the deep bass, this mid-band is like a regular human conversation.
It doesn't travel for miles, but it carries a lot more complex information in detail.
Yeah, it strikes the vital balance. The physics of the 3300 megahertz band means it carries significantly faster data speeds than the low band.
But it still maintains a respectable physical coverage radius, right?
Right. It is the bustling, high-capacity city grid. This is the absolute backbone of 5G deployment for urban and suburban areas.
So when you hear about mobile data speeds starting to rival or completely exceed conventional fixed-line home broadband connections, this is the layer doing the heavy lifting.
That's the one. And then we reach the extreme end, the high-frequency band.
The 26 gigahertz millimeter wave band. Now, this is fascinating to me because this isn't for you and me walking down the street scrolling through our phones.
No, definitely not. The Adani Group acquired spectrum here strictly for enterprise and industrial use. Think commercial ports, logistics hubs, automated power generation.
Let's go back to our analogy. If 700 megahertz is deep bass, 26 gigahertz is like a dog whistle.
Perfect. It is extremely high frequency and packs massive amounts of data.
But its wavelength is so tiny that it could be blocked by a heavy rainstorm, right? Or a pane of glass, or just a closed door.
Yeah, exactly. Because it cannot penetrate physical barriers, it is completely unsuited for mass consumer mobility.
But what it lacks in distance, it makes up for in robotic precision, I guess.
Absolutely. The 26 gigahertz band provides ultra-high speeds and incredibly low latency. That means almost zero delay in communication.
So it acts as a hyper-efficient, restricted access private factory floor.
Right. It's a closed, localized environment designed for mission-critical industrial networks where even a millisecond of lag is unacceptable.
Okay, so we have the interstate highway ensuring connectivity, the city grid carrying the daily massive data load, and the private factory floor running specialized robotics.
That's your structural breakdown right there. But let's transition from the physical mechanism to the strategic impact.
Yeah, why does this specific architecture change India's geopolitical trajectory? I mean, the technological leap itself is staggering.
The speeds are up to 10 times faster than 4G.
Right, and the projections show India hitting roughly 69 crore 5G subscribers by 2028. That puts India as the second largest 5G market globally.
Right behind the Northeast Asia region. But to understand the macro-level impact, you must connect this infrastructure to national governance themes.
Like Digital India and Viksit Bharat 2047.
Exactly. When you introduce speeds 10 times faster with ultra-low latency, you fundamentally evolve the network from connecting humans to connecting machines.
Which is the foundational engine for the Internet of Things, or IoT.
Yes, it enables machine-to-machine communication, artificial intelligence, and edge computing.
So the highway, the grid, and the factory floor collectively become the central nervous system for a fully digitized national economy.
That's the exact phrasing you want to use. And let's actually unpack edge computing, because that term gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah, let's do it. In the 4G era, if you requested data, your phone sent a signal to a cell tower, right?
Right, which then sent it through fiber optics to a massive server farm in a city hundreds of miles away.
It processed it and sent it back. That round trip takes maybe 50 to 100 milliseconds, which is fine for an email.
But with 5G edge computing, you are putting a mini data center right at the base of the cell tower.
Oh, so the processing happens at the edge of the network. The data never leaves the neighborhood.
Exactly. Which is how you achieve that 1 millisecond latency required for the robotic surgery we talked about at the start.
Or, an autonomous logistics vehicle.
Right. And this directly transitions into a highly strategic, defense-oriented angle. In any rigorous policy analysis, you must evaluate the dual-use applications of this technology.
Right, because when you have localized data processing and instant transmission, national security implications are front and center.
Consider the 26 gigahertz enterprise band we discussed.
The dog whistle.
Yes. It runs automated commercial ports, sure, but the same underlying technology creates secure, closed-loop logistics hubs for the military.
Because those millimeter waves cannot penetrate walls.
Yeah. Exactly. A network set up inside a defense facility cannot easily be hacked or intercepted from the outside. The signal literally, physically stops at the perimeter.
Wow. Furthermore, ultra-low latency is the prerequisite for the remote operation of drones.
And automated border surveillance systems and mission-critical communications.
So edge computing ensures that sensitive supply chain or military data is processed right where it is gathered.
Right, rather than being beamed back to a centralized, vulnerable server.
Okay, the strategic vision is undeniably robust. But let's bring this down to the ground reality for a minute.
Time for the critical evaluation layer.
Yeah. Commercial 5G services officially launched on October 1st, 2022. It started as a phased rollout, expanding aggressively.
By mid-2023, Jio was targeting pan-India coverage, pushing to deploy over 2 lakh 5G base stations.
Across thousands of cities, and Airtel was deploying tens of thousands of sites. But here is where I want to inject some skepticism. We all know how local administration works. You can't just snap your fingers and build hundreds of thousands of cell sites across a country as vast and, bureaucratically complex as India.
You really can't.
So what does this mean for local governance? And where is the friction?
Well, the friction is severe, and it's the most critical bottleneck in the entire rollout.
A thorough analysis always balances top-level government mandates with on-the-ground implementation challenges, right?
Exactly. The central government can auction the airwaves and generate 1.5 lakh crore rupees, sure.
But to actually use those high-frequency bands, which require incredibly dense networks of antennas, telecom companies need to physically install small cells.
Right, small cells and optical fiber everywhere. And for that, they need permission from local municipalities.
Ah, the right-of-way or ROW applications.
Yes, this is the universal bureaucratic nightmare of getting a permit to dig a trench in a sidewalk for a fiber optic cable.
Or like bolt a transmitter to a public utility pole.
It's the ultimate irony of modern governance. The grand high-tech vision of Viksit Bharat 2047 is literally waiting in line for a local permit to dig a hole.
That is the crux of the federal issue right there.
Yeah.
You have a national strategic vision hitting the stubborn friction of local administrative governance.
If a state government or local municipal body takes 6 months to approve a single right-of-way application,
Or arbitrarily charges exorbitant fees to use a street lamp.
exactly, then the entire national rollout stalls. The central government explicitly flagged these delays by various state governments as the primary hurdle.
So if local municipal fights over street furniture are bottlenecking the current 5G rollout, how is the government responding?
Because you can't have a 1.5 lakh crore investment held hostage by local permitting delays.
Right, so what's the fix?
The central response came via the Department of Telecommunications, which critically amended the right-of-way rules in August 2022.
Okay, so a regulatory reform designed to break the deadlock.
Yes. The amendment rationalized administrative charges and placed strict, uniform ceilings on the fees that local bodies could demand.
For installing equipment on what they call street furniture.
Right. Which encompasses electric poles, bus shelters, traffic lights, all essential for mounting 5G small cells.
But, I mean, a central rule change doesn't magically digitize a local municipal office.
No, it doesn't. There has to be a mechanical solution to how these applications are processed.
And that is the necessary way forward. True reform requires capacity building at the state level.
States must actively align their internal policies with this central ROW framework.
So the operational mechanism here involves digitizing their application workflows.
Yes, and utilizing GIS, geographic information systems.
Okay, so by using GIS to create a digital map of all available street furniture,
And establishing unified online fee payment portals.
telecom companies can bypass the manual bureaucracy entirely.
Exactly. If you are structuring a policy recommendation for your exam, the administrative vocabulary you want to deploy is GIS mapping of street furniture and digital road clearance portals.
That's a vital insight. Write those down. Because the execution of a multi-billion-dollar tech leap depends entirely on streamlining civic administration.
It really does.
Now, we have to solve these local bottlenecks immediately because the global technological race isn't waiting for us to figure out utility pole permits.
No, the focus is already shifting aggressively toward the next horizon.
The Bharat 6G vision document, which was officially released in March 2023, setting a firm rollout target for 2030.
And the transition to the 6G vision represents a profound paradigm shift. When we analyze this document, we are no longer just looking at the adoption of isolated technology.
We are looking at a master plan for strategic autonomy and Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Historically, India has been a massive consumer of telecom technology that was researched, developed, and standardized in the West or in East Asia.
Right, so the primary goal of the Bharat 6G vision is to fundamentally transition India from a consumer of global technology to a primary creator and telecom hub.
Exactly.
But what does that mean in practical terms? I mean, we already assemble smartphones and network equipment domestically. Why is 6G different?
Because assembling hardware is not the same as owning the underlying technology. The 6G vision is about global leadership through indigenous development.
It means creating a domestic ecosystem that funds fundamental scientific research, right?
Right. Drives original design and manufacturing, and crucially, generates Indian-owned intellectual property and patents.
Ah, the patents. To make this happen, the state is forcing massive institutional collaboration.
Yes, the Department of Telecommunications and TRAI have constituted specific expert groups and task forces.
Designed to unite academic institutions, private industry, and startups.
It is a unified, state-backed engine to ensure India owns the standards of the future, rather than just licensing them.
Okay, we've covered an immense amount of strategic ground today.
We really have.
We started with the physics of the auction bans, moved through the federal bottlenecks of local governance, and looked ahead to the intellectual property race of 6G.
So let's synthesize this so you can actually utilize it effectively on an exam.
Yeah, if you are an analyst building a mental cheat sheet or structuring a comprehensive brief on this topic, how do you map all these moving parts logically?
Think of it as a four-part strategic framework. First, establish your context
Anchor your analysis with the October 2022 launch, the 71% spectrum allocation, and the 1.5 lakh core revenue.
and how all that integrates into Digital India. Second, map the dimensions. Explicitly break down the physical architecture
Right, the coverage, capacity, and enterprise layers.
and detail the resulting impacts like IoT, edge computing, and the projection of 69 core users by 2028.
Third, analyze the friction. Dive into the federal bottlenecks.
Specifically, the right-of-way delays at the municipal level and the August 2022 rule amendments requiring GIS mapping.
Got it. And finally, your conclusion must look to the horizon.
Tie the entire narrative together by explaining the pivot to the 2030 Bharat 6G vision and the pursuit of strategic autonomy through an indigenous ecosystem.
To lock this framework into your memory, here are the 5 core data anchors you should always have on hand. Ready?
Number one, the 1,050,173 crore gross revenue that validates the scale of the sector.
2, the 3 frequency tiers. The 700 megahertz premium coverage, the 3300 megahertz mid-band capacity, and the 26 gigahertz high-frequency enterprise band.
3, the phased commercial launch date of October 1st, 2022.
4, the critical August 2022 amendments to the right-of-way rules designed to bypass municipal friction.
And 5, the Bharat 6G vision document targeting a 2030 rollout.
So if you want to stress test your understanding of this topic, frame your thinking around this analytical question.
Here it is. Evaluate the strategic significance of the 5G rollout in India. How does the Bharat 6G vision document aim to transition India from a technology consumer to a global telecom hub?
And as you think through that, keep these 5 analytical keywords front and center in your mind.
Strategic autonomy, capacity layer, federal friction, mission-critical applications, indigenous ecosystem.
Beautiful. Could we summarize this entire briefing in 30 seconds?
Let's do it. India's telecom trajectory is defined by a highly calculated spectrum allocation designed to balance massive rural consumer coverage with ultra-fast, localized industrial capacity.
While the immediate implementation faces significant federal administrative friction at the local municipality level.
The overarching national strategy has already evolved. The aggressive pivot to the Bharat 6G vision represents the ultimate transition from merely demonstrating technological capability to achieving absolute self-reliance.
Indigenous intellectual property creation and global strategic power.
Exactly.
Excellent. We'll leave you with this final thought to mull over, building on that idea of strategic autonomy.
If data is the lifeblood of the 21st century economy, spectrum is the vascular system that carries it.
Moving from 5G to 6G isn't just about ensuring your high-definition movie downloads faster. It poses the ultimate high-stakes question.
As the lines between physical infrastructure and digital reality blur, who will dictate the global standards of the future digital world?
Will we just buy the right to connect to it, or will we hold the blueprints? Keep that in mind as you track this space. Good luck with your exam prep.
See you in the next deep dive.